5 Network. This is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here. It's good to have you, and we've got a good topic on hand this morning. I invite you either to sit in, listen, and learn, and as always, we'll get the phone number up in just a moment if you want to join in the conversation. But we're going to be talking this morning about human sex trafficking, kind of a heavy topic right off the top, but it's something that we've done stories on. It's something that we continue to follow, and it's something, if you listen and pay attention, is not only very disturbing, but a bigger problem than you might expect here in the state of Tennessee and even in Nashville. The TBI, obviously, very, very involved with cracking down on this, those responsible for it. The law is changing on how they can do this, I think giving them more power to pursue those who commit this type of crime. Going to talk about that, get into the details of it. If you've got questions, as I said, join in the conversation, but I think we'll all sit back too and listen as it's kind of talked to us by special agent in charge handling this, along with many other things, with the TBI, Margie Quin. Good morning to you, Margie.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on this morning. I appreciate it. I was sitting down just when we started the show asking you a bit of your background. And share a little bit of that. I mean, as it stands now, you're special agent in charge. We happen to be talking about human sex trafficking, but your background with what you've done with the TBI.
It varied.
Yeah.
I've been in law enforcement about 23 years, 6 years in patrol down in the metro Atlanta area. Came back home and hired on with TBI. Spent the first 9 years in the drug division, working undercover narcotics and large-scale conspiracy cases before being promoted in 2007 and going into the state's fusion center and overseeing programs like the Top 10 Most Wanted, Gang Intelligence, Amber Alert, Missing Children. Right now I'm supervising the sex offender registry and the TBI's efforts to raise awareness and education on human sex trafficking.
All right. Well, we've done stories on human sex trafficking,
yes.
And I think people have a general idea of what it is, but if you were to ask them, what's the difference between human sex trafficking and prostitution? I mean, if you had asked me that before I researched it this morning, I'm not sure I could have given you a good answer. Now, we know what prostitution is,
right.
Okay? Sex for money.
Right.
Where does it become human sex trafficking?
It's a great question, and it's a question that a lot of people, I think, don't really understand the distinction between. So, human sex trafficking occurs when a person is over 18 years of age. Okay. They engage in a commercial sex act, which is that sex for money.
Did you say over 18 years of age?
Over 18 years of age. A commercial sex act occurs, which is that something of value in exchange for sex. And force, fraud, or coercion is used to force that person into that commercial sex act. So over 18, commercial sex act, force, fraud, or coercion. Under 18 years of age, a commercial sex act occurs, period. So the government does not need to prove force or fraud or coercion. In other words, there's no such thing as child prostitution. It's a crime they can't legally engage in. And so if a person is under the age of 18 and that commercial sex act occurs, then they're a victim of human trafficking, period.
Period. All right. And here in Tennessee, I guess some of the statistics out there, in terms of southern states, where does Nashville rank as a city, or how bad a situation is it here compared to other areas?
We're not entirely sure. In Tennessee, we were the first state in the nation to quantify human sex trafficking, which we did in a report to the legislature in 2011. And what we found is that minors are trafficked at a rate of between 65 and 120 cases per month across the state. Which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it. But other states have not done that sort of quantifying effort. They haven't really looked out to see how much of this particular crime is occurring. Georgia has taken on a study similar to ours. They used the same methodology we did and produced almost exact results, same results. Now, the State Department will tell you that Atlanta is the #1 entry hub for sex trafficking in the United States. And of course, Chattanooga, sitting down there, is virtually a northern suburb of Atlanta these days, an hour and a half away. So two things that really impact, I think, sex trafficking in our state from outside our borders, and that is that Tennessee is both a pass-through state and a destination state. So when you say pass-through, our robust interstate system, 4 or 5 different interstates running through our state, bring a lot of visitors, bring a lot of traffic through our state. Our welcome centers alone see 12 million visitors a year. So, and then we're a destination state. Tennessee's a great place to come and visit. It's a great place to vacation. Anywhere from Memphis to Mountain City, there are wonderful attractions all across our state, and it brings a lot of visitors to our state. And so that influx of people into the state, I think, raises our risk or enhances our risk for things like sex trafficking.
So some of them are coming here seeking this. That's what you're saying. Some of these visitors.
Certainly, we've seen that sex tourism. We've heard that term out there quite a bit. Yeah. And those are the travelers. Yes.
Okay, and we're talking mostly, predominantly, probably not all, but predominantly girls. What, ages 12
victimized.
to 14? Yeah, I'm talking about the ones who are the victimized ones. That, and are they homegrown? Are these girls from Tennessee? Or are they brought here from elsewhere?
We have found that they are predominantly children who are born and raised right here in the state of Tennessee, or they're American citizens. They are born and raised in our surrounding states, and they are either trafficked here, they pass through here, they're transported here. Although transportation is not necessary to prove the crime.
Yeah. Okay. So give me a profile. Like of one of these victims. I call them victims, these girls, these young girls. All right, so a profile of a typical one you may come from. I mean, where are their parents? How do they end up in this position?
I think there are several things that make kids particularly vulnerable, and the national statistics are at a NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Okay.
They tell us that the average age of entry for children into the commercial sexual industry is between the ages of 12 and 14. So about 13 is when they enter into the commercial sexual industry. So the profile of this particular girl can include things like runaways, a chronic runaway, truancy, single parent homes, drug addicted parents, in state's custody, without sort of a safety net below them.
Right. So if there's a runaway, how will they encounter one of these scumbags that are going to bring them into this business? I mean, I'm just curious how that goes down. Give me an example. I mean, okay, they run away from home. Someone runs away from their home in Brentwood.
Right.
Okay, and they're staying maybe with friends, or they're staying in a I don't know where they go. And then how do they encounter these people that put them in this business?
Well, and that's an important point that you just brought up, is that once they leave home, they're homeless.
Okay.
And so they might bounce from couch to couch, maybe, but they're also hanging out at malls, and they're hanging out, many of them at bus stations. That's a very a great area to lure kids.
Okay.
Most of our kids today hang out on the World Wide Web.
All right, yeah.
And they're being lured through social media sites, because most children are largely unsupervised on the internet.
So they're the guys out there trolling, looking for targets. I mean, they're going to see someone. These guys know what they're looking for. If they see a girl that appears to be a runaway, who's a vagrant downtown in the middle of the day when she should be in school, what do? Go up and approach them?
Absolutely. And there are several different lure techniques. There's what we call boyfriending, which is romancing the victim, pretending to care about the victim, providing for them in some ways that they've never maybe been provided for in the past. Kids don't generally run away from great homes, and so they're both running from something and they're running to something. They're very vulnerable. They're at risk. They many times are neglected. And so they are seeking acceptance, they're seeking love from someone, and here you have maybe an attractive younger male person who at least initially seems to care about them or love them, or is providing them something like drugs and they're drug addicted, providing them shelter and they're homeless, providing them affection and they come from a deprived home. So it can be any number of things that are used to lure that victim in to a situation that, frankly, they cannot anticipate. When I do a lot of training and speaking, I talk about the fact that most of us at 14 years of age didn't make great decisions. We just didn't. And so, you've got 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds out there on the street. They're making bad decisions. They're putting themselves in at-risk situations. And unfortunately, right now, there are people out there waiting for them.
Yeah, it's just awful. Listen, we'll take a break. That's a good overview, I think, and we'll get into more of the specifics, including and the rest we were just talking about from last week under some of these laws that are enhanced and some of the changes that have come from the legislature that's going to allow you to, I guess, put more resources into this to shut it down. Look at this guy. And they nailed him.
He's where he belongs now.
Exactly, off the streets and maybe meeting some nice guys behind bars. We'll take a break. When we come back, the number is 737-7587. If you want to jump in the conversation, join us. We're going to talk more about this with our guest about human trafficking, human sex trafficking. If there's a difference, there's also human trafficking, sometimes for labor as well.
Exactly.
We'll get into that. We'll take more of your calls, or we'll take some calls and continue our conversation right after this. Stay with us.